Candice, I have something to admit.
What is this?
I really wish that I had a truckload of money that I could just drive up and dump in front of the high performers on my team.
Don't we all?
Yeah. And also, I sometimes have these moments where I could just say, do your job or you're fired.
Are you reading my mind?
Yeah, right. It's one of those things where we don't have really either of those options in higher ed, right? There's not an infinite amount of resource. And we also have kind of rules and regulations that we have to follow and performance management things that we have to follow if someone is not performing to the way we want. So you can't just walk in there. I just once jokingly said to another member of our leadership team, I wish there was one day a year that I could just say, you're fired.
Just one day.
Just one day. Just give me one day where I can make whatever staffing changes I want to make and go forward. And those are kind of humor in the face of frustration.
Right.
But really, we are the firing is one side, and the unlimited resource to reward people is on the other side of these extremes with accountability in the middle, right? And we don't have the either of the extreme ends. And I think in some ways it's good that we don't have those extreme ends. It sort of creates maybe not the resource side. It would be nice to have unlimited resources. But I really would like to have a candid conversation today about how we create and sustain accountability in our teams.
Sounds good. I'm ready to be held accountable and talk about how I hold others accountable in the workplace.
Nice. So if you think about those two things that I mentioned before, like the risk of losing your job and monetary reward, those are what are called extrinsic motivators, right? They're external to people. And we don't have those. And so we have to, as managers and leaders of our teams, we have to rely on intrinsic motivation. Like what are those things inside people that motivate them to do a good job? So how do you, what are some of the things that you use to sort of bring out that intrinsic motivation in people?
I think the first thing is leading by example. So setting an example of doing that work for your team, not for your team, but showing that you will do the work that sometimes it's not glamorous, it's not glorious, but you are a hard worker. You're going to be held accountable. But also I share my goals with my team and let them know when I've knocked it out of the park, but also if I fall short. So you know how everyone says, not everyone, but most people will set annual performance review goals and this is what I would like to accomplish. They know exactly what my goals are, what I set from the beginning for myself, for the team, not just for the organization, but my personal ones that I'm sending up to, the dean or whatnot. And I share those with them so that they know how it worked or didn't work, because I expect them to obviously share them with me, not that they have to share it with each other. But I think that's one of the ways that I can hold myself accountable and exhibit how they can be held accountable as well.
Do you try to include them in your goals, like to help them so that they can help you accomplish your goals as the leader of the team?
Yeah, I mean, one of my goals in specific this last year was professional development, and how much I wanted the team, not just myself, to utilize all of the extra money I asked for budgetary wise. So it's budgetary. So I asked for more money so we can make sure that people can develop professionally. And so really letting them know, hey, you can not all things cost money to develop professionally. You can get a mentor or coach, you can do whatever, but I will be, asking for how is that rewarding? How is it impacting? And so they were very much involved in that goal, because I don't get it accomplished unless they actually
use it.
it. So
we've been doing a professional development budget for a number of years on our team, and I actually have a hard time spending it all. Because people don't go out there and sort of use the opportunity that they're given. We have plenty of money to
buy a book. I don't need to buy a book; they're free. Oh no.
But that's really important for people. And I think it's actually one of the ways that you can encourage accountability is through that reward, right? That reward of professional development and growth. And, we tend to offer it to everybody, but I want to, if someone is a really high achiever and they come to me and say, hey, I really want to go to this conference, but it costs a lot of money. It's like, hey, you know what? You've shown that you're really dedicated to this place. We'll spend that extra money on you this year.
Yeah. And I also do reward people by those recommendations of being on community different groups or letting their face or their voice get known outside in the community. It's not that I'm guarding it or gatekeeping it. However, if they are asking for who on your team can do X, I'm looking for those people that are already high achieving and they can move things forward. And so that's rewarding not just them, but it's rewarding our whole organization because other people get to see how fabulous, people on your team are and things of that nature. So
those opportunities to grow come with high performance, right? You don't want to give the low performers on your team those things. One, they're not doing a great job to begin with, so they probably don't have the bandwidth to do those extra things. But it is that way that we can reward people because those opportunities are there. And it's funny, when we were talking about this topic on a previous version of the podcast, there was a comment in one of the places where we posted it, and they're like saying, yeah, that doesn't work for me because I've tried doing all that extra work and then never get any reward for it. And so, but I think it is, you have to do it in a way that doesn't overburden the person, but also rewards them for a job well done.
And again, it's one of those, I see this and I'm looking at myself when I think about this, is that I've definitely volunteered for a lot of things. It's like, you're on the social committee and you're this and all these things. And you feel like you're in the spotlight and you're like, this is like 3 jobs. I have to plan the golf scramble and I have to do the bowling thing. Plus I have to do my own job. And I'm on the strategic committee. Like where does it stop? Where does it end? And you don't see the monetary value. Like nobody's giving you a raise because you're planning the social events. But they see you at the events and they're like, oh, you have to be involved. Let me put you on the committee. So I can understand the comment sometimes could be out of frustration because sometimes you feel like you're doing everything and not getting the reward for it. And I think that's a misstep in whoever is managing that person, because being able to recognize all of the work that they do outside of their work and being able to make it seem like it's an opportunity versus you have to do this is
absolutely important. I mean, we have a shared team space between our teams, and we have that thing called the colleague shout out channel, where we regularly post, hey, so and so did this and this is why it was impactful and this is why we're celebrating it. And those kind of things I think matter to people for sure.
There are other ways that we can hold ourselves accountable. And one of the things that and this is probably on your list as well, is building trust. And one of the things that I did when I first started over at Applied Health Sciences is I noticed that even though there were some teams that had been there for a while, we brought on a whole lot of new individuals, new full-time staff. And so I like to generate fun. I like to generate that energy. So I do things like, hey, let's go to an escape room. Hey, let's do these things. And so even though people are like, oh, I don't do escape rooms, or some people could have been like that, and it wasn't mandatory, but it was kind of like highly encouraged. It allowed them to communicate in ways that they don't necessarily have to, and to build that trust amongst themselves so that when they get stuck on a problem, they can ask for help without feeling like they're being judged or without feeling like they have to prove themselves before they ask for that help. Because it's not a stupid question. It is a question you don't know the answer to, and this person may have more expertise on.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point, and it's something that has been more of a challenge to do since so much of our teams are remote. I think we've had more interpersonal conflict and I think accountability issues over the last year or so. And I think part of it is the fact that our team just doesn't know each other very well because we've hired so many people directly into full remote jobs, and they're just not getting to know each other as human beings. So they don't develop that trust, and they don't have that. They don't maybe give each other the benefit of the doubt, in grace.
So how have you been dealing with that on your team? How have you been building the trust when they may never actually be in a room together, but they have to work together?
It's really hard to do. I think it's a matter of, when the pandemic first started, we were a much smaller team, but probably about half the size of we are now, but it was still a pretty good sized team. And we, like every week we actually got together for like 45 minutes. It was on Zoom, but we did an activity together, whether it was,
Scribble or Scrabble,
Scrabble or Scrabble, or,
trivia.
was it Geo Tracker,
Oh yeah.
that game where
Find where we are in the country.
they give you
I'm really good at
a
that.
picture of some place in the world
Yep.
from Google Maps, and you have to guess
I was
where
like,
it
oh, that's
is.
Serbia. They're
Yeah.
like, what? I was like,
Yeah, it's funny. We have two members of our team who are originally from Indonesia, and the random drop was like 100 miles from where they grew up, so they knew exactly what it was. But yeah, those kind of things I think connect people, and we try to have as much in person as we can. We do social events and lunches and things like that, but it's still is not the same as sort of being in that space together. I would. I won't do this.
this is recorded.
Yeah, I won't do this because I think half of my team would likely resign if I made everybody come back to campus. But I actually think we would be a better team if we were all together. I think people just get to know each other better, and remote work has huge benefits, but it also has its downsides, and we're dealing with those downsides for sure.
Agreed. So are there other things that you're doing to make sure that you hold yourself accountable or your team accountable? What other things?
So I think one of the things that I learned like very very acutely this past year is we've been going through a pretty significant reorganization in our part of IT partners, and we weren't as productive as I wished we would have been, right? And that the college needs us to be. And one of the things that I think was missing in the middle of this reorganization was clarity.
So establishing
Like
clear
expectations, right? We were moving so many pieces around that what we were trying to do was getting kind of fuzzy. And so people are like, well, what should I be working on, and what is our focus, and who should I be reporting to, and who am I accountable to?
Those are important because I've spoken with people that don't even work in my organization. They're like, oh, I got a new boss. I was like, oh, okay. But that person doesn't know what I'm going to do. And I was like, how does that make you feel? They're like, do I have a job tomorrow? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah. And it was a lot more tumultuous than I expected it to be. And that's on me for not sort of seeing that. But I think that's one of those things that if to be accountable to something, you have to know what that something is, right? And so for us as leaders to really be setting those clear expectations and helping people set priorities, you don't want to micromanage them like all the way down to the last detail of what they're doing, but they need to know what our goals are. They need to know what our the KPIs or whatever you want to call them are that we're shooting for.
And you also, when you give them that goal, sometimes you do have to actually put timelines and deadlines on there. So it's great to say, oh, we're working on this sometime this fall. But at some point, fall, it's now winter. It's December now. Well, I don't know when this will be released, but it's been quite some time. And if you don't establish the timeline or do a check-in or say when you need more help, it's really easy for that to just get minimized or not being held as a priority.
And I think in our higher ed environment too, the idea of deadlines seems fuzzy, right? There are certain things that we absolutely have deadlines on, compliance and things like that, but all the rest of it always just seems to be a little abstract. And so saying, hey, we need to do this by this date, most people respond to that and go, okay, I can do that, right? But if you don't give them that, then they're like, where is my focus supposed to be? So that clarity is really, really important.
Are there any other things that you've used that you use personally or that you've noticed that hold your own self accountable?
One of the ways that I know that works for me to keep me accountable is that I'm getting regular feedback from whoever I'm being accountable to. And so I really love that they say, Chris, you're doing a great job here, or Chris, you need to step it up here. And not just get to the end of the whole process and they go, that's not what we wanted, right? I really like when somebody is giving me that regular feedback along the way. And so if I flip that around to my team, like as leaders, we need to be providing that regular feedback. There's so much that in like our performance management processes and everything that we go to the end of the year and then we say, you did great or you didn't do great. And they're like, I didn't do great. What? And
It shouldn't be a surprise.
It shouldn't be a surprise. And so we need to be giving that regular feedback along the way.
I agree. The regular feedback is definitely a good way to hold people accountable. It also helps if you know the different people and how they prefer that feedback. Some of it, you don't want it to seem like it's nagging if they don't want to email or they want to talk about one-on-one or meetings, but they want that feedback and they need that feedback. It's just how it's presented is also important.
Yeah. So how do you deal with sort of different people needing different things to hold them accountable, right? As our teams grow, everyone sort of gets motivated by different things. So how do you work with that?
I mean, a lot of it is just knowing more about that person on your team, knowing how they work, how they operate, how they're motivated, and then using that as their reward. Not everyone is going to want to go to an event. However, they might want to sign up for an online class. They might want to get a certification on XYZ, or asking them what really they're interested in. Like, what else are you interested in? You may love your job, and I'm not saying get a new one, but are there skills that you haven't been able to develop yet? And how can I motivate them by asking, what is it that you need? It's, I don't want a gift card from Starbucks, but I need this. So asking.
Yeah, I think I've also noticed that, we talk about recognition of our staff, and I've actually found some of our staff really don't like that.
Some people do
at
not.
All. Like
I can't even understand it. But
I can't understand it either because I love it. Like it's my love language. It's my professional love language.
Please
it's
put
like
gold stars everywhere.
Yeah, tell me when I'm doing well. But there are some people that I mentioned that colleague shout out channel that I will put something in about them, and they won't even acknowledge. They won't even hit the like or the heart button. They don't. Yeah, and I'm like, did I do something wrong? It's because some people just don't like that attention, right? They might like you saying it individually to them, but they don't necessarily want it in a public forum like that.
And it's good to know how people like to be celebrated. And so even when we're talking about recognition, being able to say this person is not going to want to get up there and accept this award in front of the dean is good to know prior to it happening. So knowing how people want to be celebrated helps, not just with accountability, but just being a good person.
The other thing I think that really helps with accountability, and it probably is the motivator for like so many people, is being able to draw the line between what the work is they're doing and what the outcome is and the purpose of what they're trying to do. And so, we work in IT, so we're, in some cases, multiple layers abstracted from the mission of the university. Sometimes we're really close to it. Sometimes we are the mission of the university, but most of the time we're supporting. And being able to draw that line between, let's say a developer has built an application, or one of our data analysts has created a dashboard for somebody, to be able to draw that line between what they did and a student graduating on time, or a student getting better grades, or a faculty member getting a huge research grant because of some work that we helped them do. That's the line you have to draw, right? Yeah. Because then you're like, wow, I just helped. Let's say someday they cure cancer at the University of Illinois, right? That IT person gets to take credit for it. Yeah. It's that there's a really famous story of a hospital custodian who, when asked what he does, he said, I help cure cancer.
Yeah.
Right. And that type of thing is, like, I think, so rewarding for people. And that, I think, above all else, is that intrinsic motivation that people need. And so helping our staff create those connections between what they do and what the impact of the university is probably the number one thing that I try to do.
Oh yeah, we have those annual retreats, and one of the focus, aside from just team building, is focusing on how we align with that strategic area, because it helps hold them accountable all year long for not just their personal goals, how their personal goals relate to the university goals, and the university goals relates to the vision and mission of the college and all of these things. And so it is super rewarding. I'm glad that we continue to have that as our team. And I'm glad that they find it impactful, because they get to learn not just about themselves and the team, but why they're doing this work at the University of Illinois.
Yeah, we do a thing called the year in review with my team, and we just get together. This is another way of bringing people together.
We celebrate our successes.
And just celebrate the successes of the year. Or this year, we're not going to do it until January from a scheduling perspective.
It's
but
okay.
In that celebration, we're not just talking about the work that we did, but like the impact on the college that it had. And so we're actually just about to start a new thing with our project management group, where every single project has a 1 or 2 sentence impact statement.
Nice.
And it always uses the word "so that." And so we are doing this so that the college can succeed in this area. And so that we're tying every single piece of work that we do to that.
Awesome. It's good to have those metrics.
Yeah.
So I think we're about time to wrap up. And how do we normally wrap up these things, Chris?
We normally talk about where we struggle. So Candice, where do you struggle with accountability?
Where do I struggle with accountability? So first, I like to talk about the positive things, because who wants to talk about negative things? I struggle. I'm really great at sending that energy, getting the vibe, getting everything going. If you need people to motivate someone to start a new project, tap me in. Say, Candice, go. However, sometimes it's going great, and then they're like, it's due tomorrow. I'm going to get it in by tomorrow. It's going to be there, shiny and bright. But you may not know what it is until tomorrow, and you look at it for the first time. And so I still struggle with that constant feedback and communication with people, especially when we're working with other people, versus just, they're like, well, we did it, but they might not know what the end goal is.
Did you do it yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes that's still where I'm struggling, because it's like the group project thing. It's like, we're getting an A. I don't know how we're going to get this A, but it's happening. So
I've got 2 places where I struggle. One is when I am really fired up about doing something that we should be doing as a team, my enthusiasm can be so high and my expectations can be so high. I actually had one of our other managers a few weeks ago said, Chris, that passion is really hard to match. And so I need to, I think, be better about being realistic about expectations of accountability for my team. It's okay if they're not like with me at the top of the mountain, as long as they're sort of, still contributing at some level.
Oh, that reminds me. It's like, think optimistically, but behave realistically.
Right, exactly. And so that's one place where I think I can maybe take it a little easier on my team when I get really fired up about something, because they all have their stuff that they need to get done. And sometimes I can sort of run with an idea a little too hard. And then the other place is when I am helping them with their issues or dealing with the team challenges and everything, I can sort of neglect the individual contributor things that I need to do. And it's hard for me to stand there as the leader and say, you all need to be getting your stuff done, when I'm actually not getting the stuff that I need to be get done. So I think it's really important for me to remember how much I'm modeling and how much I'm expecting, and then also how much I'm modeling the behavior that I want to see on the team.
Yeah, so we still have places to go to hold ourselves more accountable and also be better role models for our teams. But I really think that it was good for us to have this candid conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Candice. It's always a pleasure.
Same.
Yep. Bye.